Oh, yeah. Well, I certainly woke up to a disaster this morning. The container broke when I was changing Mobley's box, and I dumped about 10 pounds of kitty litter on the bathroom floor. Oh, that was fun. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. This is a long running tradition that many of the YouTube foodie channels, or at least the smaller cooking channels, have been doing now for the past, well, going on at least the past 10 years or so. We like to do a cast iron video on Wednesdays because, well, it's fun and it gives us something to look forward to. And folks who have been to my channel here may know that I've been doing this as well every Wednesday. Well, almost every Wednesday. I've had to cancel a couple or postpone a couple. Anyway, almost every Wednesday for more than 4 years now. And well, somehow I've managed to get through it without destroying my house, at least so far. Let me just make sure. Okay, good. The microphone is not on mute this time. So, yeah, things are looking pretty good here. And, well, you've probably seen this site before because this is, in fact, the first Wednesday of the month. And that's the one where I get to, well, not exactly relax, but rather than, yeah, but have a cast iron discussion here because that is what a lot of people really like to see. I know you folks come here for the cast iron, and so more than happy to see, more than happy to oblige. William Hurt just got home from work. My cat is gone. Her dish has been upset. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. The best I could say is good luck. Honestly, I'm certainly there with you. I mentioned already. I had a little disaster of my own this morning, so yes, I'm quite familiar about that. Yes, and hello as well to everybody else. Hello to Frank Marullo, I think, yeah, from Montana, and Janet Bautista and Jim Glathar. I still can't pronounce your name right. And hello, Chris McGee and Rocket Caver, and hello, Cast Iron Fanatic, and hello, Mercy B, and oh yeah, MTH Machining as well. Hello to everybody, yes, and hello to the regulars who have shown up here for quite a few times, as well as to new persons who I'm also very glad to welcome to this channel as well. Speaking of which, hello, Rock Hunter, and hello, Dodie Man, I think. I'm a little off with the pronunciations, and if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please tell me, or at least type it into the chat. So, but yes, indeed. Showed up for these educated chats that we cannot find elsewhere. Well, I hope it's educational. I mean, my first concern is, of course, to have some fun here. Because building up this crazy collection of cast iron here has been a lot of fun over the past 14 years. And that's, well, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is I like to share the fun because I find it to be a lot of fun, and evidently a lot of other folks do too. So, again, I'm certainly here for folks to throw their questions at. And I will do my best, I guess, to answer them and have a discussion. I mean, everything we're showing here is fair game, but so is pretty much any other questions you may have in regards to cast iron. I answer to any pronunciations that are close, as Jim, and I'm very glad to hear that too. Actually, I suppose I'll start by mentioning that just a couple of hours ago, I went and took a couple of pieces out of the lye tank, ones that I had displayed about 2 weeks ago. These were new finds at the local flea market. There are two large flea markets here in the area where I live, and this is my, well, not the, yeah, I've mentioned my favorite flea market a few times, and I accidentally almost closed. There we go. Mentioned, but this one is also one where I found quite a few pieces. And this time, I did just happen to find about 2 weeks ago. I found two particular pieces that I've had soaking in the lye. These have not been seasoned yet. I took them out of the lye and gave them a really brisk scrubbing with Barkeeper's Friend, and then from there I coated them with Crisco, and I have cleaned and as well as dry them off over the burner. So there is a they definitely have a sheen to them because, again, they've got a heavy coating of Crisco on them right now, largely to keep them from rusting, flash rust. But probably by tomorrow morning or so, I will wipe off a fair amount of this Crisco and get down to the seasoning process, of course. One of them is one that quite a few of us have seen before, and that is a 1960s, definitely 1960s, unmarked Wagner skillet. Although I suppose it could be 1970s as well, which, I mean, it has all of the markings that this is probably one of the most common unmarked cast iron pans that you're likely to come across. In fact, Wagner really made a huge amount of these pans and sold them at discount stores. And so as a result, they, again, can be found just about everywhere. I mean, naturally, this has the Made in USA mark, which indicates just that. It's likely of 1960s, maybe 1970s origin. Also, I do believe this is a little heavier and thicker than the older Wagner pans, which is another sign as well that this is almost certainly 1960s make as well. So this is another one that I'm going to season and put it into my give it away pile, or possibly the Christmas present pile. Let me move this back here. And what's new in your collection, CI Fanatic? That's exactly what I'm showing you. That's one of the two that I found already, Radagast, and hello to everybody. William Hart, speaking of cast iron dubs, just sent me a nice lightweight number 7 one-notch lodge, and it's a beauty. Yeah, that's actually like my lightning. Well, nice. I'm very glad to hear that, and I do hope you enjoy it. But that at least is a clue anyway to show the other piece. Yeah, I guess I keep moving around this microphone here. And again, I don't want to trip over the cord, so this should do. But this was the other piece. You may remember in that short video that this particular piece had a painting on the back. But after 2 weeks in the lye, I have been able to scrub it all off. And once again, this is just simply, I gave a brisk scrubbing with Barkeeper's Friend, and I have coated it heavily with Crisco. And this will be the other pan that I season tomorrow. And this is also a single notch lodge. So it certainly does have one particular notch on the top. It does not have the 2 notches on the side, which of course is why they call it single notch. And in addition to the large size number on the top, it has this little mold marker or maker's mark, I'm not sure which, on the bottom, which is simply a small C. And we've seen quite a few of these with the single notch lodge. This one does not have a size number on the back. Some of the earliest generations of the lodge did have a size number, but this one did not. So other than the fact that it only has a single notch on the top, I mean, it's fairly indistinguishable from many, many lodge pans that they produced for decades. So yeah, I'm quite happy to have a number 8, even though I already have more than enough number 8 lodge pans in my collection. So, I've got quite something of a quandary on this one, in that do I actually keep it and hopefully use it, or will I end up selling it or giving it away? I do not know yet. So yeah, it's pretty much, I would say this would be in the same area as your number 7, although I think your number 7 is a little more unusual for the size too. Talk about the Southern Mystery skillets. I think I was given one, a number 3. Well, Southern Mystery skillets, I mean, the reason why they call them Southern Mystery skillets is because a fair number of them, I guess a majority of them, have been found in the southern United States, and they have often been confused. I've confused quite a few of them for the earliest generation lodge pans. The thing about the Southern Mystery skillets, though, is that they are, many of them are apparently recasts based on the original lodge design, because they often are smaller in size than a lodge pan, in that quite a few of those Southern Mystery skillets do have a number 8 size on the handle, But on the other hand, if you actually compare them and you put them inside a number 8 Lodge pan, the number 8 Southern Mystery Skillet is almost certain to be a little bit smaller. It's more like the size of a number 7 Lodge, such as that number 7 single notch that you have there. That's one of the things about those particular pans. They're also quite common and can be found, well, again, especially in the American South. And the rumor often goes around, that this is that rumor that's been dogging all of the unknown pans. The rumor goes that it was made with prison labor, that it was made in a prison somewhere, or maybe more than one in the southern United States. The thing is about this whole thing about prison labor, at least with the unknown pans, is that nobody has been able to prove it because we have no documentation or no proof of who actually made them. All people can do is speculate, and we do not know if the SMSs, Southern Mystery Skillets, or the ugly hammered skillets were in fact made in prisons. I mean, I know there are some folks who very strongly insist they were, but again, there's still no proof of it. In fact, if you want to look for prison labor, then you want to look for the known cast iron manufacturers of the American South in the early 20th century. Birmingham Stove and Range, yes, good old BSR. In their early days, they did indeed use what they called conscript labor, which essentially means just that. They contracted with the local prison to supply cheap labor from their prison population. And that, of course, is a controversial subject, one that really would get into an argument over ethics and history and all that. But it's not a subject that I am interested in covering, largely because, again, it gets into ethical discussions, and it's not about cast iron. So, and it's not as obvious or offensive as the many racist cast iron pans. Those so-called blackface banks and pepper shakers that can still be found all over the place. Yeah, that is a subject that I am not interested in getting into. Radagast, I picked up a number 7 BSR skillet, nice, for $6 at a sale. I think it looks like a Red Mountain, but according to a chart I saw, it is a Century series. Measures 10 3/16. 3/16. I don't have my chart in front of me. My understanding is that the number 7 Century series was 10 1/4 inch in size, essentially the same size as a number 8 Lodge. And that was one of the reasons why they, in the later 1970s, my understanding is after 1979, they actually began to marking those pans as a number 8B, rather, with a 7 in parentheses, largely as a cost-cutting measure more than anything else. 10 3/16 is an unusual size indeed, and that's one that I would need to take a look a little bit more. So, William Hurd, you know it, Dubs. Have not cooked anything else since I got it. Scrambled eggs and fried eggs, steak, etc. And Corey Clark. Did you block Rick Stumbow? Okay. I think I'll have to say it just once. Yes. Because of I have sworn I am not going to get into politics tonight, or really pretty much at any time at all in the near future. I've had enough of it. Nonetheless, I do realize that there are almost certainly going to be some people who show up here to gloat, and well, if they want to gloat, they can certainly do so. Because, well, number one, it's not. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be able to stop them all. And number two, that only shows their maturity. But on the other hand, as far as gloating goes, I personally am going to say that anyone crosses the line when they insult my friends. And I'm not going to say any more about I hope. Okay, I mean, if somebody wants to ask me about that later, I might give a little bit more detail, but I really don't like talking about people when they're not present. Okay, Klika, we had a proposition on the California to end prison slave labor this time. Oh, it's still being done? I honestly did not know that. I'm sad to hear that, and I hope that proposition passed. Okay, you know I have not cooked in anything else since I got it. Oh yeah, there you go. Scrambled and fried eggs and steak, etc. Yeah, the chart says 1/8 to 1/4 inch. I guess you're talking about the BSNR number 7 chart. Okay. Cynthia Wesley, I had trouble getting on, Corey, and hello and goodbye. Okay, goodbye, Corey, I guess. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Anyway, hope you're liking it. Yes, Rick says hello. Okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, if that was indeed the number 7 BSNR chart, then I will, I will certainly agree with that. And I do believe you're right in that the number 7 Century must have been a little bit larger than the number 7 Red Mountain, although it's hard to say because you had already mentioned my lightning skillet, and I certainly agree there. This, which is in fact a handwritten number 7. I don't have a Century number 7 on me at the moment. I know I had one recently, but not recently even. I think it's been at least a couple of years, but I did tend to disagree. Okay. Ronald Howard, well, yeah, I would say so. However, again, I am not one. I really do not want to get involved in drama, especially here. I hope you don't mind that. Okay, what do you think about Le Creuset, bottom enameled, and any way to tell if it's vintage? Um, Bottom enameled. Okay, well, I am not an expert, unfortunately, in dating Le Creuset, although I do know that somewhere in the 1960s, 1970s, they did buy another French enamelware company, Coussances, which is another name that's actually fairly well known in French cast iron. And yes, the skillets will vary a little in size. You're not kidding, because I know I've done this before, but let me bring out another BSNR here. That would be okay, the BSNR 7S pan, which is interesting because supposedly it's supposed to be the size of a BSNR number 6. First of all, here is the number 7 handwritten, and here is the number 7 number 7S. And these are definitely not the same size. I mean, this, as you can see, even though they're both marked as number 7, one is considerably smaller than the other, and that indeed would be the 7S. So, tell me a refresh on what Papa said about the knob-handled BSR lid. Okay, the knob-handled BSR lid. Ugh. Which I do not have one of those lids. And that's one of those things I have indeed been trying to look around for as well. So, but I have not been able to find it. However, as best as I could tell, based on what I've seen, the knob-handled lid was in fact produced by BSNR for maybe a couple of years when they first began their automated production in the late 1960s. They actually tried producing those knob-handled lids again as a cost-cutting measure because apparently it's actually kind of difficult to make a lid with this with this particular handle on the top there. And so they thought they might have been able to save some money by producing a lid with simply a screw hole in it. Then you produce the knob separately and use a screw to hold it on. And they apparently determined pretty quickly that that was not very cost effective. So they, because it required an extra guy on the production line to simply put the screw into the handle, because that was still done by hand. They did not have a machine just to do that. And so that meant paying an extra worker salary for that. And so in the end, they decided to just simply go with the standard shape of the lids. All right. Are the diameter measurements and the inside diameter of the rim, not including the ears? The camp ovens, yes. The regular sized lids, the skillet lids have to be able to fit onto the skillets. So that's the thing. I mean, if you've got a BSNR that is like maybe about 10 and 3/8 inches across, well, there's that number for you again, which may be a number 8. Or is it 10 and 5/8? Anyway, you have to have a lid that's going to fit it. And so that's actually different from the camp ovens as well. Do you have a large no notch? I do not have a large no notch, unfortunately. I have not yet been able to acquire one of those. Well, is the number 8 the only size the knob handle came? I believe no. I believe they made the knob handle for their number 10 size Dutch oven as well. I'm not so sure about the number 12 size. I would really have to research that to find out. Largely because that knob handle lid was only produced for a short period of time. Anyway, it was initially thought the Pioneer series was, in fact, supposedly those knob-handled lids were made for the Pioneer series, and and apparently that was not the case. The Pioneer series was just that, a separate label that they put on the very same pans. And I believe they sold them at places like maybe Sears Roebuck or Lechmere or Montgomery Ward or one of those. Anyway, it was the same pan with a different label, and they did not produce those knob-handled lids just for the Pioneer series. So, was the number 8 the only size that the knob handle came? Oh, no, you asked that one already. Yeah. My cornbread skillet is a number 7 single notch large. Oh, your cornbread skillet. I get it. Yes. Okay. Well, no, good. And yeah, I certainly understand having a particular size one particular pan only for use with cornbread. I certainly have one myself, and that's also a number 7. My gate mark lucky number 7, in fact. So. Okay, and hello to Taylor Rosnowski. Well, hi, and welcome to this channel, and thank you. I've watched, but never live. Well, thank you very much. And well, all I can ask is if you want to hang around and take part in the conversation and ask questions, well, please feel free to do so as well. Yeah, he told me we were, don't pass. Yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. And I looked on my second one last week. I think you're talking about lids, because in general, lids are less common, especially by themselves, than cast iron pans. Because, well, in a kitchen, it's like you can have a cast iron pan without a lid, but there's really not much point in having a lid without a cast iron pan. So. Radagast, my number 7 BSR skillet is stamped 7C, not handwritten, and the red mountain should measure 9 and 11/16. Okay, well, there we go. Yeah, I'm glad you've got a chart for a reference, whether it's on my website or otherwise. Good for you, Keith. Okay, and William Hurt, at this point, I hope you've been able to locate your cat. All right. Yeah, welcome, Taylor. Yes, and hello to Clico as well. I don't think I said hi to you either. So, well, so far, so good. I'm now using my no notch and one notches now. The big ears are so cute, like working with Dumbo, Dumbo the elephant. Oh, no notches and one notches. Oh, Oh, I see. So you're saying that just like early BSNR, the early lodge pans had big ears on them. That's actually interesting. I'm nowhere near as experienced, I guess, with my research into early lodge as into early BSNR, and so that's interesting to know or think that the earlier lodges might have had the large ears. Although this is, in fact, again, this single notch lodge. While it certainly does have noticeable ears, I'm not sure if they're really much larger than the later lodge pans. In fact, let me dig out a number 8 lodge right now, such as the 2020 Made in America skillet. And if we compare this, oh yeah, no, actually, I will say that yes, the ears on the modern day lodge cast iron are definitely smaller than the single notch lodge. Let me see if I can try to get some kind of comparison here. Here, of course, is the modern day lodge with the lid, and I'm actually starting to think that this one notch lodge might actually be a very slightly bigger in size than the modern day lodge. That's also interesting because the newer lodge fits into the no notch lodge, and if I can show it to you right, ears definitely are bigger on the one notch lodge. If I said no notch, then I'm mistaken. On the other hand, if I try switching these around and put this older lodge into the newer lodge, it kind of fits, but I might say this might be the older lodge might be perhaps a fraction of an inch bigger than the modern day lodge, which is actually quite interesting, I think. So, okay, gotta pick up the mic here, and again, I don't want to hit that mute button. All of that I'm learning from experience. Okay, just like that one, yeah, you gotta love it, exactly. The new old number 7 has big ears. Cynthia, I use my no notch and one notch lodges regularly, and they are great users. Well, again, and I don't doubt that at all, Jim Glathar. Congratulations, Keach. Oh, yeah, exactly. The thing is beautiful and seasoned well. Yours, I presume, because I haven't seasoned mine yet. All I've done so far is coated mine with Crisco, and it has and I still need to actually season it in the oven, which I think I'm going to be doing probably tomorrow while I'm at work. So thank you again. And thank you as well. Yeah, and good luck again to William Hurt. Okay, I just has big ears. All right. Okay. Looks seasoned. Well, again, all I did on this simply was I gave it a very brisk scrubbing with Barkeeper's Friend, and then from there I gave it a thick coating of Crisco and dried it off on the stovetop burner. So this thing is actually not seasoned yet. This thing still is kind of sticky, in fact. That's one reason why I'm going to be actually seasoning it, because really that's what you're supposed to do. Eventually, if I leave it like that, I'll end up rubbing off some of that coating of Crisco, and then it could potentially flash rust. Show the bottom. Okay, I'll show that bottom again. And here again is the one notch. I keep saying that, the one notch lodge. So my microphone is a little ways away. I hope you can hear as well. So number 8, there are no notches on the sides, and there is in fact a just that. Okay, and the ears are somewhat larger than the modern day lodge as well, which I do find to be very interesting. I would have to say this is turning out to be something of an interesting find. Okay. All right. So We have gone over the one-notch lodge. Excuse me. And all right. Other than that, as I mentioned, okay, yeah, love the big ears on the older skillets. Big ears, noodle noggin. Thoughts on how many rounds of seasoning works best for you before using after restoring? I have been satisfied with 3 coats of seasoning I found. Lately, I've been using specifically Crisco to season my cast iron, and especially because it takes the better part of a morning to season it 3 times. I've been quite happy with that so far. So 3 has been okay for me. In some instances, I may go for 4 or 5 even. Um, do you have any fancy handled pans? Yes. And TK, do you own any cast iron with wooden handles? I do not have the Skepsholt. On the other hand, I do have 2 of the BSR Lady Best series, which I have over here. One happens to be a very small skillet. This one actually was gifted to me, and I'm very pleased to have that. And the other is the 1 quart saucepan. Both of these were from BSNR's Lady Best series of the late 1970s, which they produced in time for the 200th anniversary of the United States of America. Okay, let me put this down here again, and that way we can get another close look. The Lady Best series, which is actually much smaller in size than your standard number 3 sized BSR cast iron skillet. It has a mention here, number 6 size, but in fact, that only means that it's 6 inches in diameter. The Lady Best series just simply used exact numbers for the size. There was a 6, an 8, and a 10, and they were all exactly that size. And here as well is the wooden handle. This one was in good condition, and all I really had to do was just like maybe shine the wooden handle on this particular one. The other one, which also says number 6W, is the saucepan from the Lady Best series. And in fact, this one here, I actually had to sand down the wooden handle and then give it a few coatings of linseed oil to give it this particular color. And so far, it has served very nicely. I use this a fair amount, in fact. Having a 1 quart cast iron saucepan, I find to be rather useful, in fact. So, okay. And even though they both say size 6, that's because the rim is the same size. The bottom, on the other hand, of the saucepan is much smaller. Well, not much smaller, but noticeably smaller than the bottom of the skillet. Those are the only wooden handled ones I have right now, I'm afraid. I don't have Skepsholt, and I don't have those made in Taiwan saucepans. Skillets, I'm afraid. On the other hand, let me bring one other thing over. Careful here. All right, and that would be... You mentioned a fancy handle skillet. This one was, in fact, a Brimfield find. One, I can't believe, I think it's been about 10 years or so, in fact. But yes, I've actually had this, and this is, in fact, a number 9 size fancy handled skillet. This one is also possibly the thinnest cast iron pan I think I own, especially in this size. This thing is definitely warped on the bottom, too. This is not just a spinner, this is a rocker. And it's definitely taken a little bit of punishment over the decades as well. But nonetheless, I have indeed cooked in it, and I do enjoy doing it. I enjoy using it. And here is a very prominent gate mark on the bottom of this. So yes, this one, in fact, was a Brimfield score, as I mentioned, because I happened to find this along with a number 9 Griswold lid at Brimfield. And I found that these are pretty much close to a perfect fit. So the guy selling this to me, he sold this combo of the Griswold lid and the skillet here for $25. So I wasn't able to pass that up, no. And at that time, he told me most of what I was paying for was for the lid. So he didn't consider the pan to be very valuable. All right, let's get this back right now. All right. Okay, moving right along, I guess. Okay. All right, and what do you tend to cook most in those saucepans? Very cool. Well, the saucepans I find in my cases, here's another saucepan, by the way. This is a 2-quart cast iron saucepan from again from Birmingham Stove and Range. This was also a Brimfield find, and for a while I was using this as a regular rice cooker. Although since I got my aluminum Dutch oven, I have to say I have not been making as much rice in this otherwise. But as far as a saucepan goes, yeah, I can definitely say I have made a number of sauces in that, as well as cake glazes too. So, yeah, interesting gate mark with a single ear. Yeah, those fancy handled pans, I'm told, are a little bit older in that they might be like from the 1860s or so, if I understand right. What are we making? Big McDonald's fries at home or a Big Mac home edition? Hello, Honey Badger, and this is the monthly cast iron discussion where I'm actually not going to be cooking tonight, although I certainly intend to be next week as well. How many griddles do you have? Do you use them often? I find myself with more griddles now than I know what to do with. I actually have 3 of them. And what do you use them for? Do you use them often? Probably not as often as I'd like. I mean, the griddles I have used, of course, for your usual pancakes and for, like, say, stir fries, you know, the kind where you make steak subs, for instance. One of these griddles actually I inherited directly from my parents. I'm going to move a couple of these things out of the way at the moment. This side here, and I can show. Oh yeah, 4 griddles. I'm sorry. This is my pancake pan, and this one happens to be a Wagner. In fact, this is a an older Wagner. If I can get this close enough to the camera here. This one I managed to find only a little more than a year ago for $20. So yet again, it's one that I was not able to say no to. Number 9 sized Wagner griddle, and this thing is darn smooth too. So this is the type of thing, of course, that you would use for pancakes, or you could use it as a comal for doing tortillas. So that's one griddle. On the other hand, also here, we have got the modern day Lodge pizza pan, which I do indeed use for making pizza, but this thing also makes an excellent griddle as well. And this is the modern day one that they released only a few years ago because it has this edge to it. It does not have a raised rim all around it. So yes, this again is only a few years old, and this is yet another piece that I have not gotten as much use out of it as I'd like. On the other hand, we've got this one that's only about a month old. I did a special live about this particular one, and this is the new modern day Wagner griddle. This is the one was delivered from the new. Oops, I have it upside down. This is the griddle that came from the new Wagner Ware company, the one that's producing exact replicas of these griddles, in fact. And this one was only made, like, if I'm seeing this right, in 2023. So this griddle is only 2 years old, even though it has the original Wagner Ware logo on it. Ugh. And finally, getting down with that. From there, we have this particular griddle, which in fact I inherited from my parents. This one has an unusual design on the bottom here, and in fact, I think this actually came from an oven. You know, one of those stove tops that has a griddle on it, and I do believe it was salvaged from an oven. It is very thick and very heavy. It does have a patent number on the back here, right there. And when I tracked down the patent number, I found out that this is actually from Weber. Yeah, the makers of the Weber kettle. And as I mentioned, this was in fact my parents' griddle, and I inherited it from them. Oh, man, this is heavy. Ugh. Easily 10, maybe 15 pounds, I think. Okay. Greg Hard, love my large pizza. Use on the grill all the time. Cast iron with honey badger. I give you a shout on my channel. Oh, you use my garbage cookie recipe. Oh, nice. I really want to take a look at that. I'd like to see how that turned out. So yeah, I'm always flattered when somebody uses my recipe. So thank you very much. Griddles splatter too much for my liking. It is true that if you use too much grease on a griddle, you can end up spilling it. Yeah, there is that. That's definitely for sure. Let me see if I've missed any other comments here. Thoughts on lead test? Coyote 102. Thoughts on lead testing in vintage cast iron? I've been told to test on stripped bare cast iron. Are the tests accurate? I always have a positive result on bare cast iron. Really? Well, first of all, I'm wondering what tests you use, and I'm curious as to why you always have a positive result. Because the 3M surface lead paint test, I was using that for years until 3M discontinued it sometime within like maybe the last 3 years or so. It is no longer available. 3M discontinued it. I found it to be accurate. When I test, I've been lucky in this respect to find a using that 3M lead test. I did indeed test quite a few pieces of cast iron for lead, and I never found lead on them. On the other hand, when I used that same lead test on what I had at that time was vintage Pyrex bowls, those things definitely showed up as having lead. So that really scared me enough to get rid of those Pyrex bowls. That also demonstrated that the lead test, yes, it really did work. And as far as I'm concerned, it was accurate enough. That this is yet another bit of argument and even drama in the cast iron community, especially lately. It seems like a number of people are really coming out against these lead tests by pointing out that this is not what they're meant to be used for. They're meant for detecting lead paint. And that's not what we are using them for. We are not using them according to what they were designed for. And I will acknowledge that. But I would the reason why I am in favor of it nonetheless is because it should be very easy for that kind of a test to detect noticeable amounts of lead on the surface of a cast iron pan. I don't know about microscopic levels of lead, but for a pan that's been used, like say, to make lead fishing weights, for instance, that should show up easily. However, that particular lead test has been discontinued anyway. So at this time, I don't have a lead test in my possession, although there is another one that they've been making available recently that has like about 15 swabs that I'm interested in trying out. So that's something there about lead testing in vintage cast iron, or at least I hope so. All right, I understand for Morris, but I got to start trying my unmarked Wagners. They are too cute. Yeah, they are very useful as well, too. Really, I mean, especially since they are so common and relatively easy to find. I mean, if anybody wants to start a collection of vintage cast iron, starting off with an unmarked Wagner is probably not a bad way to begin. So especially the 12. I get a lot of use out of my number sixes. We do like 5 individual pieces, pizzas, and everybody fix their own. That all sounds good. I mean, as long as you're getting use out of it, that's for sure. I found a lead test with 60 swabs on Amazon. I think I know the one you're talking about, although it's been a few years since I actually saw that. Chemists here have to be careful with test kits, have to be sure they are suitable for intended purpose. Yeah, that Rock Hunter, that is one of the reasons why there is some controversy over those lead test kits. Yes, and I will not deny that. My reasoning so far, and I'm not a professional. I don't pretend to be a professional anything. Not a professional chemist. Not a professional medical practitioner. Not even a professional cook. But I'm just basing this on what I hope is a reasonable conclusion that using a cast iron pan for melting lead would produce a very noticeable residue, one that should easily be detected by a surface lead test kit. Okay, you brought up a Kamal. Time for a show on other cultures using cast iron. Well, that's all. Again, that's certainly tempting right there. I mean, I have done a number of foreign dishes, but only a small number compared to the vast amount of dishes from other countries they have out there. I mean, I do have, of course, my large cast iron wok, as well as that Kamal. Those are the only pieces that I can think of that could be considered technically foreign dishes. I don't have, or pieces of cast iron. I don't have an able skewer pan, I'm afraid. And I also don't have a tagine either from Africa, I'm afraid. Real easy to find. Yep. Professional chaos creator? Well, I certainly hope not. Yeah, the chaos seems to happen whether I want it to happen or not, unfortunately. So, right. Morning meaning rock, poison. I'm not sure. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, suitable for intended purpose. I'm not so sure he's referring to poison, but I think he might be referring to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Rock Hunter. You're probably talking about the accuracy of the test. Because if you don't use it as intended, who could say if you're going to get accurate results? Well, again, for a lead test, I would think it would be pretty obvious in that the liquid that you use or the chemical that you use, turns red when it encounters lead. And it should, I say should, be as simple as that. Should you lead test all vintage cast iron? My opinion is no, that's not absolutely necessary. Largely for a couple of reasons. Number one, in most instances, not all instances, but most instances, lead residue is pretty easy to spot even with the naked eye. Not always, but in most instances. Number two, it would also depend on the environment you're in. If you're in a place where they regularly use things like lead shot or lead weights, or if you're in a place in if your local town or county regularly uses those things, then it might be worth it to consider lead testing certain pieces of cast iron if you have a reason to be suspicious. Because, I mean, well, technically, yes, you can use anything to melt lead in cast iron. And I've seen people use skillets, Dutch ovens, cornstick pans, muffin pans, and a whole bunch of other things. Some cast iron pieces are much more likely to be used for melting lead than others. because of their convenience, of course. Small pots, saucepans, maybe some skillets. All of those are possible candidates for melting lead. Is it likely that you're going to detect lead in, say, a huge number 12 size Dutch oven? I'm thinking it's not as likely because, it's not very likely that someone would use something like that for melting lead. Yeah, so I cannot give any kind of official advice because, again, I'm not a professional or anything like that. I am really stating my opinion. Maybe you can use that as a disclaimer that I feel, just based on my experience, however much it is, it's a good idea to test for lead if you have reason to be suspicious. Because, in general, any particular cast iron pan that you find out in the wild, the chances of that particular pan having been used to melt lead are extremely small. Not impossible, but extremely small. So you be wary, and again, test if you're suspicious, maybe almost like on a case-by-case basis. On the other hand, just about any unknown cast iron pan, I would still recommend stripping it down to the bare metal and reseasoning it yourself. Not so much because of the possibility of lead contamination, but because you don't know what that thing was used for. What if it was used for changing motor oil? What if that cast iron pan that you got at a yard sale was stored in somebody's basement or attic for a decade and little critters used it as a nest or a bathroom? You don't know. And I'm trying not to gross you out by saying that the possibility exists. So it would probably be a good idea in general to strip an unknown piece of cast iron and season it yourself. Swab tests from Lowe's, 10 in a pack. I tried several on other bare metal items around the house and they were positive results. Yeah, and especially since that's not the 3M lead test, I might ask if you might want to consider trying another kind of lead test then. Because that does sound, excuse me, I'm yawning. That does sound a little bit suspicious, I agree. The 3M lead test I liked a lot, and in fact, I looked as well for the customer reviews on Lowe's and Amazon and all that for the lead test. And all of the negative, I did not see a single instance of it saying that it gave a false reading or did not properly detect lead. All of the negative reviews of the 3M lead test all had to do with the packaging or the fact that the thing broke because, the lead test, the 3M lead test was two chemicals in glass, in tiny little glass vials that you crushed and then shook together. And there were people complaining about how that was applied, but none of them questioned the accuracy of the test. The package on the 3M lead test gave an estimate of 95% accuracy, which meant if you tested something and then used a second lead test and tested it again, I again would have to think, just based on logic, that it would give a reasonably accurate measure. Okay, so that's my opinion anyway on testing cast iron. We found very nice terracotta bread butter at a thrift store, but it stunk of mouse nest. Yeah, exactly. There is that risk. That's kind of what I mean. So, Cynthia Wesley, I've never been tested, never been suspicious, but like I said, I'll cook and sit back and see if my hubby broke. Okay, yeah, to each their own. I don't think I have any other answer than that. So, all right. Going back again, making sure I don't miss any other of these comments, only if it's very suspicious. Looking at my test. Oh, yeah, we said that one already. I have to be careful with kids. Yes, exactly. Okay, going right along. Lead tests. Okay. Yeah, we brought up Kamal's. In the movie Conspiracy Theory, the only time Mel Gibson felt normal if he bought a book Catcher in the Rye. Oh, yes. I guess none of us feel normal unless we handle our cast iron every night. Well, that's why one of my sayings regarding castironitis, if you wander over to the kitchen section at Walmart to look at the cast iron, and you do this every single time you go to Walmart, you might have castironitis. I've never tested, and both sons have 10 toes and 10 fingers. Yes, and that's again, if we're not careful, we could be end up going down another rabbit hole that really don't want to go down. Yeah, my intention is to have fun cooking in cast iron, and unfortunately, when we get into other topics, it can cause some difficulties. I mean, unfortunately, as you saw tonight, because of the recent political events, yeah, apparently I've had something of a falling out as well, and I do feel bad about that, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't like talking about people who are not here. We know what fire damage looks like. Do you keep that pan to show what not to do? Oh, yes, actually, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Let me go and dig that one up right now. I have it over here. Ah, it's gotten a little dusty, I'm afraid. Oh, man, I didn't realize how much dust this thing has brought up. However, here is a fire damaged skillet. In fact, it is a Wagner ware. And you see the lousy condition this thing is in? I tried seasoning this. No, correction. I've had this pan in the lime tank for at least a month. I used electrolysis on it for a good couple of days. And I tried seasoning it in the oven. Can you tell? No, the seasoning absolutely did not stick to this thing. This is a definite fire damaged pan because, in fact, if you hold it at the right angle, you will see that this thing is not only warped, it almost looks like it is folded. Let me try to get it over here on this. I'm trying to get a good angle on this thing so that you can see how warped this thing is. This is, in fact, I'm thinking this must have been salvaged from a house fire or worse. And yes, I do, in fact, keep it on hand as an example of a fire damaged cast iron pan. Because that is yet another of those controversies in the cast iron community that I am not happy about. The one that says, I clean my cast iron in the fire all the time. I toss all my pans in the fire to clean them, and they look as good now as the day they were made. Hogwash. Number one, those people claiming that they regularly fire clean their cast iron, they almost never show photos of them. I say almost never. Because when they do show photos, they almost inevitably have the red color that you see with fire damaged cast iron pans. That's a permanent red color, and no, you cannot get rid of it. The thing about fire cleaning is just this, is that fire cleaning will not automatically or every time damage a cast iron pan. There is, in fact, maybe a small but definitely noticeable possibility of warping or damaging a cast iron skillet or pan if you clean it in the fire. And I think that's where a lot of this stems from, because it doesn't happen every time. So people go through a lot of it, and it doesn't look to them as if any damage has happened. But there's always that one time. I've received emails and messages from people who did comment how that they did end up cracking skillets by cleaning them in the fire. Rock Hunter. I found a BSR that had bright red to pink rust on it. Figured out later it was probably fire damage, but seasoned okay after electrolysis. Yeah, that's the other thing. Fire damage is random. In that I do have some pans that in fact have been fire damaged, including my huge number 12 BSR Dutch oven. That actually is fire damaged. I was still able to season that one. But on the other hand, I have seen and I've owned other pans that were fire damaged that were worthless because I could not season them. That Wagner pan is one example. Another example was I found once a Griswold Iron Mountain Dutch oven, and that thing I could not season for the world. It had been completely ruined. So, have you made a video on making an electrolysis tank? Very some of my very oldest videos going on, oh my god, more than 10 years ago, I have electrolysis videos. I would have to say I will probably need to do, well, now here we're getting into winter again. I think probably come the springtime when I rebuild my electrolysis tank, my e-tank, I will probably have to do a video on that. You have an antique endorsement on your insurance policy. No, and I probably should, because I do believe that insurance companies can allow you to secure or insure certain belongings in your home as well. Coming in late, I heard the lead contamination comments. I agree. The smaller cast iron vessel, the more likely it may have been used to melt lead. Yeah, we're talking like cast iron saucepans and muffin pans in particular. I am actually worried about muffin pans that I find in the wild, precisely because of the possibility that they could have been used to make lead weights and lead sinkers, because they're perfect for that. You have to say that they work great at that. Too great, maybe. I'm not seeing Fuzz Fork's post at all. Only know he's here because of other comments. Fuzz Fork did just post. He said, Honey Badger and myself had a nice talk to a fellow who loved to throw skillets. I bet he said throw them in the fire. Let me scroll up here. Who loved to throw skillets into the fire. We could not get through to them. No, and typically it seems like you can't do that. That's the thing, again, about people's opinions on things like seasoning cast iron, cleaning cast iron. Once people have their opinions, those opinions are fixed. And it's very, very hard to change someone's opinion. So usually I don't, because I am not one, I don't like arguments. I know that may be hard to believe, especially after recently, but I don't like arguments. I really do try to avoid them if possible. Rocket Caver, a good long vinegar soak will etch a skillet and help to fire burnt pan to hold seasoning better, but it is still damaged. Yes, it is. They have made X-rays or electron microscope photos or something really, really small to the microscopic level examinations of fire damaged cast iron pans, and that's where you see that the damage really extends into the metal itself. Those pores on the those microscopic pores on the surface of the skillet, you could see them crack, not just cracked, but really, really damaged by fire, even at the microscopic level, and that's why fire damage is permanent. How long did it take to collect all of the pans? Well, I got hooked on this hobby. I can actually name a date because I was on Facebook when it happened. December 16th, 2010. That was when I cooked in a cast iron pan for the very first time. And in fact, it was with this pan right here. This is my Lodge Redneck pan. And it's a Lodge number 8 pan. And I cooked a steak in this cast iron pan for the very first time, and I posted about it on Facebook. Let me put this back. Let me try putting it back again. Anyway, on that date, I turned that steak into a piece of leather. I poked at it. I prodded at it. I way overcooked it. As I said, I turned that thing into a dried out piece of leather. But I had a lot of fun cooking that steak. Cooking that steak I found to be very relaxing and very stress relief, and I enjoyed myself. And that was the night I was hooked. So since then, I was bitten by the cast iron bug, and I have spent the last 14 years, well, in December it'll be 14 years, building this cast iron collection. And that's what happens when you're a single guy living by himself with nobody around here to say, no, you can't get that. So, especially lately, I have been repeating to myself that I do not want to be a hoarder. And I've been doing what I hope is my best to try to accomplish that, which is one reason why, among other things, I've got a give it away pile in the corner, which has right now 2 large Dutch ovens, about 5 No. 3 size skillets, a couple of larger skillets. Those are all things I'm going to be eventually selling or giving away as Christmas presents. And I have done that before, even though it's been about a year since I sold some of my pieces at a flea market. Fire video that you did with the pan. Oh, yeah. I think I know the one that you're talking about, too. The one that says, don't throw your cast iron into the fire. I have bakeware that is for the collector's shelf and haven't used it until I lead tested. Bakeware I use daily. I bought new. Oh, I know where you're coming from. And yeah, I still need to do a live video. I think last month I said I was going to do that too. I'm going to have to remember this for next month. Next month I'll do a live video on my bakeware shelf. That's where I have my bundt pans, my baking pans, and my enameled pans too. So, okay, the single life. Yeah, it has advantages and disadvantages, yes. You can't hoard cast iron. You are a discerning collector. Well, having over 100 pieces of cast iron, it's hard to say how discerning I have. Then again, I have met folks who have cast iron collections over 1,000 pieces and more. So that kind of makes me feel a little better. The cat just showed up. Oh, congratulations. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, William Hurd. That is good news. Speaking of which, I believe Miss Mobley should be coming in at any moment as well. So, didn't you do one where you lit the contents of whatever you were cooking? I've done a few videos with flambe, yes, because it's fun. You have to be careful, but yeah, it's fun. You know, making dishes like bananas Foster or steak Diane or especially coq au vin. All of those have a step that do involve adding alcohol like brandy to the pan and lighting it. The main reason you do that is to, well, number one, burn off the alcohol, and number two, it allegedly sears the surface of the food, but I'm not sure how accurate that is. More importantly, it puts on a show. That's probably the main reason for setting things on fire than anything else. Very early video, yeah. Single life is not cracked up as you think it is, but you never have to explain yourself. Now, there is that. As long as it doesn't get to the point where I'm having conversations with myself. I'm not worried about talking to myself, not until I start replying and having full-blown conversations. Somebody is flooding this with likes, and thank you very much who's been doing that. What are your thoughts on stripping pans using the self-cleaning function on your oven, safe or possible warping? My oven doesn't have a self-clean. I've got a nice gas oven now, but it doesn't have self-clean. I have yet to have a self-cleaning oven, so I cannot speak from experience. What I do know is that many people, again, swear by the self-cleaning method because it heats up your pans to something like 800 or 900 degrees, which is more than enough to vaporize and burn off anything on the surface of the pan. Now, 800 to 900 degrees gets you close to the warping point or damage point for a cast iron pan. Whether that actually damages your pan, I'm not sure. What I do know, well, there is that possibility that a very sudden heat or temperature difference, you know, if the temperature goes up just like that, you could very well experience thermal shock and then it might indeed crack. But I have seen reports of instances where ovens have exploded, or at least the doors have shattered by using that to clean cast iron. Because, you know, again, it's what our friend the chemist here said only a little while ago. You know, you should really have to consider if you're going to do something in a way that it is not designed for. Self-cleaning ovens are meant to be empty when you use it. Filling a self-cleaning oven with 20, 30, 40 pounds of cast iron. That is not what the oven is designed for. And there is indeed a possibility you could damage your oven. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Even though I don't have one myself, I have seen reports of it. And for that reason, I don't recommend the self-cleaning oven method because there is a risk involved. And why should you use a method that has a risk involved, like cleaning with fire, when there are other methods that are completely safe, as long as you take precautions not to hurt yourself? Meaning, a lye tank is completely safe to your cast iron. You can leave pieces in your lye tank for months, maybe years, and they'll be just fine. Electrolysis, again, when used carefully, is safe, and that's why many people use that for cleaning very rare antique pieces. Things like that. There are safe methods available, and so use them. And hog wild, there have been many pans warped or cracked using the self-cleaning oven. Yes, and it can ruin your oven. Exactly. They say to even remove the racks when you use the self-clean. Yes, all of that is indeed a point I guess that we're making here, and I certainly hope that helps. If you have a lot of crud on your pan and put it in a self-cleaning oven, it could catch fire and you can't open the oven. The problem is it heats up. It can heat your cast on the bottom well over the temperature to warp your iron. Okay, so maybe I was wrong about saying close to the warping point. I was saying 800, 900 degrees. The warping point of cast iron is generally believed to be around 1100 degrees, and that's not impossible. So yeah, and you don't want to damage your oven either. So again, I would not recommend the self-cleaning oven for that reason. Oh yeah, the fire video, that one you're talking about, the dangers of cast iron cooking. Yes, that was one of my very, very first videos. That's when I set my oven on fire just to prove a point. It is true, and that is still like the number 2 or maybe the number 3 most popular video on my channel even now. Regarding that video, a couple of points. I'm not saying this is some kind of an excuse or apology, but I'm telling the truth. When I made that video, when I intentionally set the pan on fire, I was not alone. There were, in fact, people there behind the camera with me. My brother was there with a fire extinguisher, ready in case something bad happened. Fortunately, everything went according to plan, and I never want to do that again. So I was indeed stupid and lucky, but I got it to work, and hey, got a nice flashy video from it. I got a Smithy 10 to restore tonight. Should I test it or just restore it and leave it alone? Yeah, that's a good question as well. Okay, when you're saying test it, do you really think someone would use a modern day Smithy number 10 for melting lead? You know how expensive that pan is? Just for that reason, I might recommend, if you think it's suspicious looking, then test it. Otherwise, I would be very confident in just simply stripping that pan and using it for that reason. Because again, we're talking about the environment here. An expensive Smithy number 10, I don't think it's likely that was used for melting lead. Nothing's impossible, but may not be likely. I seasoned my stove, never cleaned. Yeah. Test it by using it. I had hell with my 12. Yes, exactly. So, whew. Have 911 on speed dial. Yes, indeed. And that was the other stupid thing I did in that video. And again, something I don't recommend. Taking down the smoke detector and admitting it. I did it then 10 years ago, and I'm not doing that again. In no way in my videos, including the ones I've made recently, am I ever going to say, hey, look, I took down the smoke detector, because that could be bad. That could, somehow that might come back and bite me in the butt several years from now. Even though you folks know my smoke detector, you call it my chaos detector. But even so, when that thing goes off, all I'm doing is saying, I just had to take care of the smoke detector. I didn't say anything about taking it down. I just took care of it because, got to be careful. It is well used. It actually looks like it has a better surface than the 12. Nice. Well, oh, yeah. It doesn't feel like a record. Yeah, that's the other thing about the modern day cast iron skillets, including this field skillet that was presented to me by Louis J. Louis J. Cast Iron Cooking. Here is a field skillet. Let me get this microphone close again. Here is a modern day field skillet. And unfortunately, I've already kind of like stained the surface here, but I'm working on it. Anyway, this is a modern day field skillet. It looks like it has a surface like a Griswold, but in fact it doesn't. This rather has a grooved surface like lead, like a record rather. And especially if you use something like a chainmail scrubber, you will hear it. It will sound like running your fingers across a vinyl album. Those grooves are very, very, very smooth, very small, and they're hard to see. But they are there for seasoning purposes. And so even though this looks smooth, it does indeed have the grooved surface. And I, for one, have no problem with that. I have used all of my cast iron without grinding it down. Will proudly say that I have never ground down any of my cast iron pans. None of them. Not my large pans, not my Asian-made pans, not my vintage pans, because I've never had a need to. That's the other thing, I guess. You can get a nonstick surface on a modern day so-called rough cast iron pan. The reason why people do smooth those pans out with grinders and all that, well, okay, there are 3 reasons. 1, it looks great. It does look fantastic. That is a given. So grinding it down will give you a really, really shiny surface. 2, it does actually cook very slightly better than a modern day rough large skillet. I will grant you that. But you can still cook just fine with a large skillet. So that's why I don't think it's necessary to make the effort to it. And great, I said 3 reasons, and now I've already forgotten the 3rd reason. Oh yeah, the 3rd reason. It also feels great to use metal utensils and run them across a cast iron pan that is glass smooth. You don't get the scratching that you get with a modern day lodge. I mean, the feel of it is in fact better. Those are the 3 advantages of grinding down a rough cast iron pan. Notice in none of them do I ever say you get more non-stick, because you can cook just fine in just about any cast iron pan and get a good non-stick surface. But those are the 3 reasons to grind down a cast iron pan. And as I said, I've never done it myself because I have not had a need to. But once again, I think we're on a case-by-case basis. Hog Wild cast iron, out of all the modern day pans I've used and tested, the Lancaster is the best so far. Well, nice. I do want to test a Yeti eventually. I've enjoyed the butter pat that was sent to me, and I will say that at least. But yeah, I mean, if you are able to acquire a Yeti skillet, go ahead and show us. I love the Lancaster Wagner on the bottom. Radagast, I have never ground down a skillet, but I bought one at a yard sale. I can tell that it is better. No, I can't tell that it is any better than any of my unground lodges. Yeah, that's the thing. With these polished and ground down skillets, you still have to season them. So eventually you're going to build up the seasoning on them. As such, as you said, it's really hard to tell the difference over time. If I would crack or fill a pit, I would have to grind and polish. there are instances, I suppose, where it's legit to do an actual grinding on a cast iron pan. There are some cast iron pans, especially the Asian made ones with a really rough surface, that might actually have an edge to them that could, cut you or otherwise do that. And then, yeah, of course, you're perfectly justified in grinding it down. Actually, you're justified in grinding it down for whatever the reason, because it's your cast iron and you can do what you want with it. All right. Same here. I had those two that someone ground down. Yes, exactly. Hi, Greg. Hey, Greg Hart. And hello, Then Be Mine as well. Also, hi. And welcome to this channel. I do have to say, we're probably going to be calling it quits in a few minutes because we have been going on now for an hour and 20 minutes. And well, yeah, the time really flies when we get into these conversations, or at least it does for me. And I can only hope that it does otherwise as well. And yes, thank you as well to Chris McGee too. So thank you. I guess I should indeed probably call it a night for that reason. And besides, I'm kind of tired as well because I was up late last night, and I'm not going to get into that. William, there and any better smooth surface on the seasoning does not come off. If it is a twin to the older outer heat ring Wagner's. Good, yeah, and exactly. Good night, folks. Yeah, okay, yes, and likewise to Cast Iron Fanatics and Bell's Black Cat's Rule and Rocket Caver and Hog Wild Restoration. I guess I'll say one last time since this is coming to an end. I mean, I do feel that I know that there are a couple of people who earlier tonight, well, they were upset and they may very well have left, and it did have to do with my dabbling in politics. But I'm not okay. On one hand, I'm sorry they left. On the other hand, it involved something that I do not want to discuss in public. And that is all I'm going to say about that. So if they're free to email me or message me otherwise about that, but that's about it. I hate drama. And quite frankly, I hate politics. I recently got involved in politics largely because I felt it was important. That the political season is over now, and I am just really just relaxing, and I'm just going to be a lot more laid back for, well, at least the next couple of years. I think I can safely say that. And that's about all. And thank you very much, TK. And Ronald Coward as well, and Rocket Caver, and Hogwild Cast Iron Restoration. I know we've had a couple of messages as well, Hogwild. And really, I don't think we have anything else to say. I'm just here really to have some fun in cast iron, and I hope you enjoy it. And that's about all that needs to be said. Other than that, and yes, N Kyola or Kyoda 102, and thank you, and well, yes, thank you very much. And I certainly intend to keep doing these because they are a lot of fun. That's the thing I've said enough times, and I sincerely mean it. That really having all you folks here on these live videos, definitely what I've considered to be a lot of fun, and having all you folks here for companionship during these live videos certainly does indeed make this a lot of fun for me. It's really great being able to do these and to see your comments and your conversations and your criticisms, all of which I accept. And I'm more than happy to keep doing it for that reason. And likewise as well and thank you to everybody, to Cynthia Wesley, Hog Wild, and Fuzz Fork 8 and Bets. What are you cooking next week? Consider this. We're in the holidays now, and you know what that means? 3 weeks from tomorrow is Thanksgiving. It's probably a good time to consider getting started 3 weeks in advance. Well, hey, there are so many things we can do. We could share how Thanksgiving tips and tricks for cooking in cast iron, for instance. Or one thing I do regularly on Thanksgiving is I put in a push for a cause that I really support, something that I do indeed push in people's faces, and that is cranberry sauce. When I learned how to cook cranberry sauce, I was literally, my whole opinion of it changed. So that's only one example, and there are quite a few Thanksgiving dishes that really we could dedicate ourselves to. So we've got at least 3 more weeks to go yet. Oh yeah, the spiral potatoes that I've been promising to do forever. We can certainly give that a try, and yes, see what happens. And green bean casserole, yeah, exactly. I know, Radagast. The time really flies, and I enjoy that for that reason. Cranberry stuffing, a show on cranberries. That definitely sounds like a plan. We should probably look into that, maybe next week. Okay, yeah, exactly. No issues, and there's really nothing else to say either. I will not say any more about it, Hog Wild, I promise. Okay? We're done with that subject. And sweet potatoes and Val's Black Cat's rules and Rocket Caver and Radagast. Yeah, I pack wild high bush cranberries and make sauce. I think I might have opened a can of worms by saying cranberries. So, and in fact, there's another thing that I have made in the holidays. Anybody know razzleberry dressing? I've done it. That might be worth something to consider as well. So, Lodge Challenge. Oh, yeah, one thing. Not everybody can do this, but this weekend is the Lodge Warehouse Sale or Lodge Clearance Sale. In South Pittsburgh, the home of Lodge Cast Iron, they are opening up their warehouse and getting a lot of odds and ends and putting them out for sale at bargain prices. And that means you can get some unusual, maybe even rare, modern day Lodge cast iron. I have yet to go to that sale, and I can't do it either because I'm still at work for the rest of the week. But if you are able to take a trip to South Pittsburgh, like say Friday or Saturday, you will not regret it. And that's something to consider there. Clico, love cranberry sauce. Yes. And Val's Black Cats, cranberries play. Oh, yeah. The cranberries play some good music. And yeah, and hello as well to Eduardo. And this pop up just hit it. Hello to Eduardo Espinoza, Slychan or Slychan. I can't pronounce it. And William Hertz, and yes, pumpkin pie is definitely in the works as well. And but at this point, I think it's time to call it a night because they seem to be going on like a broken record. But thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for stopping by tonight, especially since tonight has been kind of like a stress relief in the last few days. And I'm hoping it might be for a lot of other people as well. Because again, what I really love doing more than anything else is having fun here. Oh, and Friday at 7 a.m. I go under the knife. Well, here's hoping that everything turns out well, Hog Wild, and I certainly do mean that. But thank you everybody for taking the time to show up here tonight, and I do hope you enjoy my channel. And of course, we will be doing this all again next week. So I can only say yet again, as I always say, based on my favorite movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. See you next Wednesday.